The public conversation around this fight has mostly focused on one thing: whether Conor McGregor can still compete at an elite level after such a long layoff. But that might be the wrong question. The better question is whether McGregor still has the tools to create the kind of fight that gives Max Holloway problems, because if he does, this matchup may be more competitive than many people expect. Today we're breaking down exactly where those opportunities exist and whether they're enough to change the outcome of this fight. Before we get into the scoring, first we'll need to understand each fighter's blueprint. This segment answers a simple question: who is this fighter when the cage door closes? We'll break down their archetypes, best weapons, strengths, and weaknesses to better understand how they're built and what makes them dangerous. Conor McGregor is an A-tier counter-striker built around precision, timing, and creating devastating counter opportunities during controlled exchanges. He wins by managing range, drawing reactions, and punishing mistakes with sharp, accurate power shots, especially his left cross. His game is most dangerous when opponents pressure recklessly or allow him to dictate the pace early. His finishing ability and elite striking IQ make him one of the most dangerous counterpunchers the sport has ever seen, though cardio and attritional pressure prevent him from reaching S-tier completeness. Max Holloway is built around pace, pressure, and non-stop layered boxing offense. He wins by overwhelming opponents with combinations, forcing exhausting exchanges, and maintaining pressure deep into fights without slowing down. His ability to adapt mid-fight, sustain elite output, and weaponize cardio against high-level competition makes him one of the most complete pressure strikers ever. Holloway's archetype consistently works against elite opposition because he can maintain his style over 5 hard rounds without losing effectiveness. Every fighter has an operating system. It's the underlying strategy that connects all of their skills together and dictates the type of fight they're trying to create. For Conor McGregor, the goal is simple: create hesitation and punish it. Everything Conor McGregor does serves that objective. His distance management keeps opponents on the edge of his range. His feints force reactions, his movement creates uncertainty, and his left hand is always waiting for opponents who make the wrong decision at the wrong time. McGregor isn't trying to overwhelm opponents with volume. He's trying to create moments where opponents become predictable. That's when he becomes most dangerous. When his operating system is functioning properly, opponents stop fighting naturally. They hesitate before entering range, they second guess their attacks, and every pause creates another opportunity for McGregor to land something damaging. The more hesitant an opponent becomes, the more dangerous Conor McGregor becomes. For Max Holloway, everything starts with pace. Force opponents to fight at a pace they can't sustain. Everything Holloway does serves that purpose. His pressure keeps opponents working, his combinations force repeated defensive reactions, his pace demands constant effort, and his cardio allows him to maintain that pace long after many opponents begin slowing down. Not every punch is thrown to hurt opponents, many are thrown just to make them work. Every defensive movement requires energy, every exchange requires focus, and every minute spent fighting Holloway comes at a cost. When his operating system is functioning properly, opponents gradually become less effective, their reactions slow down, their defense becomes less disciplined, and the opportunities for Holloway's offense become easier to find. The longer the fight continues, the more dangerous Max Holloway becomes. Every operating system is powered by a set of weapons. These are the tools that a fighter relies on most when they're at their best. The better those weapons function, the easier it becomes for them to create the type of fight they want. Conor McGregor's best weapon is this left cross, also known as the Celtic cross. That thing is a piston, and few strikes in MMA history have produced more knockouts, momentum swings, and championship moments. He can land it as a lead, a counter, or at the end of combinations, making it one of the most versatile and dangerous punches the sport has ever seen. His second best weapon is his left high kick. McGregor uses it to punish opponents who become overly focused on defending his boxing, particularly the threat of his straight left hand. Because opponents are often expecting punches, the kick can arrive unexpectedly and create some of the most damaging moments of his fights. His third best weapon is the pull counter left hand. McGregor excels at drawing opponents into range, leaning just outside the incoming strikes, and immediately firing back with his left hand. Some of the most iconic moments of his career came from his ability to make opponents miss and punish them before they could recover. Holloway's best weapon is his combination boxing. Few fighters in MMA history have been able to throw long combinations with the volume, accuracy, and technical discipline that Holloway maintains. He doesn't just throw more punches than his opponent, he forces them to repeatedly defend, react, and make decisions until their defense begins to break down. His second best weapon is the jab. Holloway uses it to establish range, disrupt rhythm, and gather information and set up for the rest of his offense. It may not be the most damaging strike, but it's one of the most important tools in his entire game because so much of his pressure and combination work begins with the jab. His third best weapon is his body work. Holloway consistently attacks the body to drain energy, lower guards, and make opponents less effective as fights progress. Every body shot contributes to the long-term pace and attrition that defines his style, making it one of the key reasons he becomes more dangerous over time. Conor McGregor's biggest strength is his precision counter-striking. At his best, he's one of the most accurate and dangerous counterpunchers the sport has ever seen. He excels at reading opponents, identifying patterns, and landing clean shots the moment opportunities appear. Few fighters have been able to turn a single mistake into fight-changing moments. What makes McGregor especially dangerous is his ability to create damage. He doesn't need overwhelming volume to win exchanges because his timing, accuracy, and power allow him to do more with fewer opportunities. Opponents who are forced to fight cautiously because they know one clean connection can completely change the direction of the fight. His ability to manage distance is also one of the defining strengths of his game. McGregor is exceptional at controlling range, forcing opponents to enter on predictable lines, and creating exchanges on his terms. That ability makes his counters more effective, limits opponent offense, and allows him to dictate the pace when everything is working properly. Conor McGregor's biggest weakness is that his effectiveness can decline as fights become longer and more demanding. His style is built around precision, timing, and explosive moments, but maintaining those advantages become more difficult when opponents force extended rounds and sustained pace. He can also struggle against opponents who apply relentless pressure without giving him clean opportunities to reset. Fighters who consistently force exchanges, maintain volume, and continue working their way into range can gradually reduce the space and control that his striking game relies on. Defensive consistency can become another concern as fights become more attritional. McGregor's style depends heavily on timing, movement, and distance management, so when opponents successfully force exhausting exchanges and prolonged battles, defensive openings tend to appear more frequently than they do early in fights. Max Holloway's biggest strength is his pace and volume. Few fighters in MMA history have been able to maintain the level of sustained output that Holloway brings in every fight. He constantly forces opponents to work, defend, and react, creating a pace that becomes increasingly difficult to match as rounds accumulate. What makes Holloway especially dangerous is his combination boxing. He is one of the best volume boxers this sport has ever seen, capable of stringing together long combinations while remaining technically sound and balanced. His ability to flow from one strike to the next forces opponents to defend repeatedly, often creating openings that weren't available at the start of the exchange. His cardio and durability are also defining strengths. Holloway can maintain pressure deep into fights without sacrificing much effectiveness, and he's repeatedly shown the ability to absorb damage while continuing to execute his game plan. That combination of endurance and toughness allows him to weaponize attrition against opponents who rely on explosive moments or early success. Max Holloway's biggest weakness is that his pressure-heavy style naturally keeps him in range for long periods of time. Because he's constantly entering exchanges and building offense, elite counterpunchers often have more opportunities to land clean shots against him than they would against more cautious opponents. His style is also built more around accumulation than immediate fight-ending power. Holloway overwhelms opponents through pace, volume, and repeated offensive success rather than one-shot knockout danger. While that approach has been incredibly effective throughout his career, it can allow dangerous opponents more opportunities to remain competitive and create damaging moments of their own. He can also be vulnerable to early disruption before his pace fully develops. Holloway is most effective when he has time to establish his rhythm, gather reads, and gradually increase his output. Fighters who can create hesitation through power, precision, or damaging counters can temporarily slow the momentum that his style depends on. Now that we understand each fighter's blueprint, it's time to quantify it. The skill matrix answers one question: how do these fighters compare skill for skill? We'll score all 16 Fighter Index skills across 4 pillars to identify where the biggest advantages and vulnerabilities exist in the matchup. Fighter Index scores are measured on a scale from 1 to 10, where 5 represents a functional UFC level skill, 7 creates real advantages, and 10 represents a rare or generational ability. Pillar 1, Fight IQ and Athletic Tools. This matchup creates a major contrast between early precision and long fight pressure. Starting with Fight IQ, Max Holloway scores a 9 compared to Conor McGregor's 8. Both are elite strikers mentally, but they apply their intelligence differently. McGregor is exceptional at controlling early exchanges, setting traps, and punishing mistakes with precision counters, while Holloway's strength comes from his ability to adapt over time, make live adjustments, and gradually overwhelm opponents through layered pressure. In athleticism, Holloway again holds a slight edge with an 8 compared to McGregor's 7. McGregor is explosive early with sharp reactions and fast counters, but Holloway's pace, movement, and ability to sustain output over long stretches give him the more reliable athletic profile across extended fights. Stamina is one of the biggest gaps in this entire matchup, with Holloway holding a massive advantage scoring a 10 to Conor's 5. Holloway's cardio is one of the defining weapons of his career, allowing him to maintain pressure and volume deep into fights, while McGregor has historically slowed when forced into exhausting pace and prolonged exchanges. Resolve also favors Holloway. He scores a 9 to Conor's 7. Both fighters are dangerous under pressure, but Holloway's durability, composure, and willingness to continue pushing pace through adversity give him the stronger long fight reliability edge. Because Holloway controls the pace, cardio, and attritional side of the matchup so heavily, Pillar 1 favors Max Holloway. Pillar 2, striking and stand-up defense. This is the defining pillar of this matchup because both fighters are elite strikers, but they weaponize striking in completely different ways. Starting with striking, both fighters are even at 9. McGregor is one of the sharpest precision counter-strikers this sport has ever seen, capable of ending fights instantly with timing and accuracy. Holloway is one of the best volume boxers in MMA history, overwhelming opponents with layered combinations, pressure, and non-stop offensive output. McGregor wins exchanges through precision and damage, while Holloway wins through pace and accumulation. In the clinch, Holloway gets a slight edge, 7-6. He's more comfortable fighting extended physical exchanges and maintaining offense while pressuring forward, while McGregor prefers cleaner striking space where he can control range and timing more effectively. Striking defense is even at 7. McGregor's defense is built around range control, pull counters, and making opponents hesitate before entering, while Holloway's defense relies more on movement, durability, and adjusting during high-volume exchanges. Both can be hit, but for very different reasons. The biggest gap in this pillar comes in chin, where Holloway holds a massive 9-6 advantage. Holloway has a granite chin, and his durability and ability to absorb damage while continuing to pressure are some of the defining traits of his career, while McGregor has historically been more vulnerable once opponents survive early counters and force prolonged exchanges. Because the elite striking offense is evenly matched, but Holloway carries major advantages in durability and attritional pressure, Pillar 2 slightly favors Max Holloway in long fights, even though McGregor remains the more dangerous early knockout threat. Pillar 3, grappling and control. This part of the matchup focuses on offensive wrestling, positional control, and overall comfort during extended grappling exchanges. Starting with wrestling, Max Holloway scores a 7 compared to Conor McGregor's 5. While neither fighter is primarily known for building their game around wrestling, Holloway's more functional in prolonged clinch and grappling situations, while McGregor's wrestling has historically been more focused on separation and returning to striking range. In takedown offense, Holloway again leads 6-4. Holloway is more willing to opportunistically mix in takedowns to disrupt rhythm and create control time, while McGregor rarely uses offensive wrestling as a meaningful part of his overall approach. Top control also favors Holloway. He scores a 6 to Conor's 4. He's more comfortable maintaining position in extended grappling sequences once the fight hits the mat, while McGregor is generally more focused on returning to the fight and standing exchanges. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Holloway holds another edge with a 7 to Conor's 5. Neither fighter is an elite submission specialist, but Holloway is more layered and reliable during prolonged grappling exchanges, while McGregor's effectiveness has historically declined once opponents establish sustained control. Because Holloway holds the advantage across all 4 grappling categories, Pillar 3 favors Max Holloway. Pillar 4, defense, scrambles, and ground survival. This part of the matchup focuses on defensive grappling reliability, positional recovery, and how comfortable each fighter is once exchanges become messy or extended on the mat. Starting with takedown defense, Max Holloway scores an 8 compared to Conor McGregor's 6. Holloway has historically shown stronger balance, better defensive reactions, and more consistency in staying upright against prolonged wrestling pressure, while McGregor's had more difficulty once opponents repeatedly commit to grappling exchanges. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense, Holloway again holds a significant edge with an 8 to McGregor's 5. His positional awareness and ability to stay safe during grappling exchanges are much more reliable overall, while McGregor's historically been more vulnerable once opponents establish extended control or force difficult defensive sequences. Off the back also favors Holloway with a 7 to Conor's 4. Holloway's more comfortable recovering position, creating movement, and working his way back into fights from underneath, while McGregor's generally less effective once prolonged bottom control sequences begin developing. In scrambles, Holloway leads with an 8 to Conor's 6. His pace, cardio, and transitional awareness allow him to maintain effectiveness during chaotic exchanges and rapid positional changes, while McGregor's explosiveness is dangerous early but less consistent during extended grappling sequences. Because Holloway controls every defensive grappling category with clear consistency advantages, Pillar 4 favors Max Holloway. After evaluating all 16 skills across the 4 pillars, we can now calculate the Fighter Index Composite Scores. The composite score answers one question: who is the more complete fighter overall? It's important to remember that this isn't a prediction model, and a higher score doesn't guarantee victory. It simply measures the overall completeness of every phase of MMA. Conor McGregor has a Fighter Index Composite Score of 5.9. McGregor's score reflects a fighter whose greatest strengths are concentrated in specific areas. His striking, timing, power, and ability to create fight-changing moments are some of the best in the sport, but lower scores in stamina, grappling, and long fight sustainability reduces overall completeness compared to more well-rounded fighters. Max Holloway receives a Fighter Index Composite Score of 7.8. Holloway's score reflects one of the most complete skill sets in MMA. He scored highly across all 4 pillars and demonstrated strengths in striking, cardio, durability, defensive grappling, and long fight reliability. His ability to maintain effectiveness across multiple phases of fighting makes him one of the most complete fighters in the sport. On paper, the Fighter Index sees Max Holloway as the more complete fighter. The next question is whether those advantages translate into victory or whether McGregor's ability to create fight-changing moments can overcome the gap in overall completeness. We've identified the strengths, the weaknesses, and the skill gaps. Now it's time to answer the question of what does each fighter need to do to get their hand raised. This segment identifies the conditions, strategies, and moments each fighter needs to create to give themselves the best chance of victory. Conor McGregor's path to victory is built around controlling distance, creating the more damaging moments, and preventing Max Holloway from turning the fight into the type of high-output, striking battle where he thrives. Holloway's greatest strengths are his pace, volume, and ability to continuously build offense as fights progress. McGregor's goal is to disrupt that process before it can fully take shape. The striking battle is where McGregor can create the biggest separation. His 9 in striking against Holloway's 7 in striking defense represents one of the most important skill gaps in the matchup. McGregor doesn't need to match Holloway's output exchange for exchange. Instead, he needs to use his distance management, timing, and left-hand power to ensure that his offense remains the more impactful offense throughout the fight. Managing the long-term pace of the matchup is equally important. Holloway's 10 in stamina compared to McGregor's 5 means that extended exchanges and prolonged rounds naturally favor Holloway. McGregor's best opportunities come earlier in the fight when he can dictate the distance, maintain sharp reactions, and force Holloway to work through dangerous striking exchanges before the volume begins accumulating. Bodywork should also play a major role in the game plan. Holloway's success is built around sustained activity and constant engagement, making attacks to the body one of the most effective ways to reduce his effectiveness over time. Every successful body shot increases the difficulty of maintaining the pace that makes Holloway so dangerous. For McGregor, this fight is about controlling where exchanges happen, making his offense count for more, and preventing Holloway from building momentum through volume and repetition. If he can maintain a favorable distance and create the most damaging moments, he gives himself the best chance to win this fight. Max Holloway's path to victory is built around forcing Conor McGregor to fight at a pace and volume that become increasingly difficult to maintain over time. The biggest comparison is Holloway's 10 in stamina against McGregor's 5. That gap is one of the most important dynamics in this matchup because Holloway becomes more effective as rounds accumulate, while McGregor's advantages are most dangerous when the fight is fought in shorter, more controlled exchanges. Holloway also needs to use his durability and confidence to consistently work his way into range. His 9 in chin compared to McGregor's 6 allows him to apply pressure more aggressively than most opponents are willing to. The goal isn't to recklessly walk through offense, but to remain committed to entering exchanges, building combinations, and preventing McGregor from comfortably dictating distance throughout the fight. The striking battle itself is about making volume matter. Both fighters are scoring 9 in striking, but they arrive there in different ways. McGregor creates success through timing, precision, and damaging moments. Holloway creates success through combinations, pace, and repeated offensive sequences. If Holloway can consistently force multi-strike exchanges instead of allowing the fight to be decided by isolated moments, the matchup begins shifting towards his strengths. His grappling advantages can also become increasingly important as the fight progresses. Holloway's edges in wrestling, takedown defense, scrambles, and overall defensive grappling give him additional ways to win minutes and remain effective if the fight becomes more physical later on. Even if grappling is not the primary focus, those advantages can help support the pace and pressure that define his game. For Holloway, this fight is about consistently entering exchanges, maintaining a demanding pace, and make McGregor work throughout every round. If he can prevent McGregor from controlling distance and force enough volume to accumulate over time, he gives himself the clearest path to victory. We've examined the archetypes, operating systems, strengths, weaknesses, and skill matrix. Now it's time to answer the biggest question of all: who wins this fight? My Fighter Index verdict is that Max Holloway wins this fight. The Fighter Index clearly favors Max Holloway. He won all 4 pillars, holds major advantages in stamina, durability, grappling, and long-term fight reliability, and enters this matchup as the more complete overall fighter. But Conor McGregor is still going to Conor McGregor. His timing, power, and ability to create fight-changing moments make him dangerous against anyone, regardless of what the scorecard says. If he can control the pace, land the bigger shots, and disrupt Holloway's pressure early, he absolutely has the ability to win this fight. I just don't think it's likely to happen. The problem is that Holloway's path to victory is just simply wider. He can win through pace, volume, durability, cardio, and even the occasional grappling exchange if the fight changes phases. McGregor's path is much narrower and relies heavily on creating damaging moments before Holloway is able to establish his rhythm. The intangibles also favor Holloway. By the time this fight takes place, McGregor will have been away from the competition for 5 years, almost to the day, following one of the most significant injuries a fighter can recover from. During that same period, Holloway's continued competing against elite opposition, staying active, refining his game, and proving he can still perform at the highest level. Ring rust is difficult to quantify, but activity at the top level matters, and that's another area where Holloway enters this matchup with fewer questions to answer. When I look at the skills, the matchup dynamics, the path to victory, and the intangibles, I believe Holloway has more ways to win and fewer questions to answer heading into this fight. And that is the full Fighter Index breakdown for Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway. The Fighter Index is designed to evolve as fighters evolve, and community discussion plays an important role in that process. If there's a skill score, an operating system, a best weapon, a path to victory, or even the verdict itself that you see differently, let me know in the comments and explain what you're seeing that the Fighter Index isn't. Do you think Holloway's pace, volume, and durability are too much to overcome, or can McGregor create the fight-changing moments he needs before the pressure starts building? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more Fighter Index analysis. Catch you on the next one.